I see a dream, that dream is green. And I don't mean material things. Freedom to the land, child, woman, and man. As we take up for what we stand. Better days and better nights. As we stand and unite. We're one and the same. Why is it so hard not to point and to blame? Better sheet, get our houses in order and we'll see the peace. There are steps that we must take if we wanna see.
I see my people rising, no more stopping us. Couple billion acres across America, us. The peace rose for the sake of us.
The sake of us, the sake of us.
I see my people rising, no more stopping us. Couple billion acres across America, us. The peace rose for the sake of us. No more failing, telling, being beneath. What a beautiful moment, and a sight I can't wait to see. Even if I miss it, at least I wasn't part of the mission. Changing lives of men, women, and children. Our glory goes to He that causes us all to be. Oh, and if they're thinking we can, we show them that. Just as long as we stand, a monument. We the people can't be broken as long as we stay focused. I see my people rising, no more stopping us. Couple billion acres across America, us. The peace rose for the sake of us. For the sake of us. I see my people rising, no more stopping us. Couple billion acres across America, us. The peace rose for the sake of us. I see my people rising, yeah.
שלום, שלום, שלום לכולם. שלום לכולם. אנחנו מתפללים שהכל בסדר. Itkem halayla. We pray all is well with you all tonight or this evening. Ha'ereb. I am Chief Prince Shama or Nasik Arashi Shama, and I have none other than Chief Prince Zebulon Belewa Hedekia currently with us as well. Shalom, shalom, Adoni.
Hallelujah. Shalom Barak Bashem Yah. Good to be here. Good to be here.
All praises to the Most High. You all that are tuning in right now. If you're tuning in right now, this is part 2. If you have not seen part 1, you got to make sure you go to part 1. This is Sage Talk. The segment is every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we left off with Esther and the dawn of Hellenism. So we spoke on Ezra. We spoke on Nehemiah, Zerubbabel, Yehoshua. We spoke on Haggai as well, but we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it. Chief Prince, what you think of the direction we're going in with this?
I think that I think the direction just generally is it's always a good thing when we are able to go into the portion of our history and the portion of our scriptures that we normally don't get an opportunity to. Oftentimes when we're in the scriptures, it's usually to find a precept to get at somebody on, or trying to find something very specific, and we get what do you call it when you you pick a scripture here and here?
Soundbite scripture.
Soundbite scriptures, and so oftentimes, oftentimes there's portions of our literature that we don't deal with because it doesn't serve a war purpose. If we can't go to war with it, if we can't use it to uproot or get at somebody with, we tend to overlook it, especially when it comes to the historical elements, the geopolitical element of our writings. And I think we kind of covered it quite a bit last week with the book of Esther and the backstory behind things that were going on in that time. And I feel that this is a good opportunity to go past the time of Esther, as far as diving into the quote unquote intertestamental period. We briefly touched on it last week, but I think it's time for a deeper dive. So I think it'll be a good thing for us to hammer this out.
Okay, and we got a lot of good reactions pertaining to this discussion, and it's going to be an ongoing discussion. We're about to dive into a lot of things, you all. One of the things that stuck out to me, some people that was listening in was surprised how Kagai actually matched with the time of Esther in the school of thought that we have. And of course, your expertise in the historical standpoint. For those that's tuning in, he is a historian of historians of our time. You all, if you're not familiar with Chief Prince Zebulon, please check out his works. About 26 published books, maybe 25, 26 published books. Or am I way off? Is it 29 or 25?
You wild. It's only 23, brother. It's only
23. Hey, man, people round up when they in the low 20s. But that's published, though. I said that correctly. All right.
That's correct.
All right, so I'm going to open up with something. Please stop me if I go too far, because I know what the direction is. So once I get to a point where it's like, okay, you know what, let's pump the brakes on that. We're going to eventually bring that out. But I want to give people just a little bit of information, kind of segueing into what we're about to talk about. So the shift Ezra and Nehemiah didn't finish. That sounds interesting, right? The shift that Ezra and Nehemiah or Nehemiah didn't finish. Ezra, Zerubbabel, Nehemiah, Haggai, and Zechariah reestablished Torah, reestablished the temple, reestablished covenantal identity. I would say more so Ezra, Zerubbabel, Nehemiah, and Yehoshua. But here's the key. They never regathered all Yisrael geographically, right? And it's important that we consider that point that I'm putting out there. Persia allowed the return. Many chose not to return. That choice sets everything else in motion, the choice of not returning, right? So Persia wasn't captivity anymore. It became home. Under the Achaemenid Empire, I might be saying that wrong, Israelites had legal protection, economic opportunity, communal autonomy. Cities like Susa and Babylon became permanent population centers. All right? Jump in whenever you feel the need, Chief Prince. By this point, Aramaic becomes dominant, right? Hebrew becomes liturgical more than conversational, right? So Hamlo, Debu, they want to speak at it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. So leadership shifts from temple center to scribe center. You kind of jumped on that last week. This is where Ezra's scribal model becomes more important than the altar. That sounds interesting. Then comes, and stop me if I'm going too far, Alexander, and everything accelerates. When Alexander the Great conquered the region in the late 4th century BCE, I know it can be some discrepancies in time. I'm sure you're going to correct that. Borders collapse. Greek becomes the economic and intellectual language. Massive population movements happen voluntarily, right? So Alexandria was founded by Alexander, a global capital of learning, home to the Library of Alexandria, a magnet for skilled, literate communities. The Alexandrian Israelite community was huge, hundreds of thousands by some estimates, was Torah observant, not pagan, read Hebrew but lived in Greek, needed scripture accessible to their children. This is crucial. So now I have more information I want to bring out, but I don't know if I should keep going in that direction. Right now, I'm going into the. This is what Apocrypha actually, comes into play. What we now call the Apocrypha is mostly, and stop me if I'm going too far, diaspora literature, wisdom texts, historical reflections, resistance literature, anti-Hellenism. Written, some say written in Greek or Hebrew, Aramaic, then preserved in Greek for communities outside the land. You want me to stop there or keep going just a little bit?
Yeah, because we're gonna have to backtrack to not to the time of Esther, but not to Esther, that book in itself, but the circumstances that we find these writings being written under. And I think we covered a lot of this last week with Ezra and Nehemiah and the frustration that they were going through. Again, we always talk about how almost 500,000 Israelites are in the diaspora, and less than 15,000, 20,000. The numbers vary, but in the tens of thousands of Israelites actually returned. So you had a remnant of a remnant that decided to return. And you gotta, and here's the problem with captivity and exile. Captivity is a forced environment. Captivity is forced. You're captive. That means you're taken control of under duress, under foreign dominion. They subject you. You're subjected. Exile just simply means you are no longer in your place of origin. And by the time the 70-year captivity was up, it was no longer a captivity. The people were now in a state of exile.
Yeah. And
many of them, especially when you consider the writings in Yirmiyahu, where it tells that when, in this captivity, to build houses and occupy them, to marry, to plant vineyards, to do these things, because it's going to be 70 years. You're talking about almost 3 generations are going to be there. So therefore, get comfortable. It's get comfortable and get a few sticker bars, because you're going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
And the downside to that captivity, the upside is that many Israelites learn their lesson. This is the reason why you can't find any real cases of idolatry after the Babylonian captivity. It was something that Israel just didn't do anymore. And they were so afraid of idolatry that their idolatry, they even felt that if they even uttered the name of the Most High in a less than set apart manner, that could qualify as idolatry. So this is when they started using the practice of not even using his name. That's how afraid they were, because they're like, idolatry clearly doesn't work, because we were in Babylon amongst the deities in Babylon. They didn't help. The deities of Persia didn't help. They didn't want no more parts of idolatry. This is the reason why after the Babylonian captivity, I challenge any Israelite to name me 3 occasions of mass idolatry among Israel.
That's deep. That is actually deep. And then real quick, before you continue, when you had said about not really saying a name often like that, so that didn't come from the Jewish people, huh?
Oh, no. Let's, as a sidebar, the Jewish people simply became, they were like the custodians of Israelite thought. Just like the Greeks became the custodians of mathematics, of math. We always hear about Greek math, whatever like that. But but these forms of high levels of mathematics were developed hundreds of years prior to the Greeks. They were developed by Babylonians and Arabs. This is where if you look at the numbers that we use in America, they're Arabic numerals. This is not a coincidence. When you look at high levels of mathematics, such as algebra, algebra comes from what? The Arabic term al-gibor. Al-gibor. You know what I'm saying? The powerful, because they considered algebra to be a high, powerful level of mathematics. This is where algebra comes from. Al-gibor or al-jabor. The powerful, the strong, from gibar. So, just like mathematics was invented, if you will, by the Babylonians and the Arabs. The number zero, the concept of zero, was a Babylonian invention, because they realized that the mathematics, the calculations wouldn't make sense unless you had a placeholder. But it couldn't be a placeholder that had value, because that would throw off the equation. So they invented the zero, the concept of zero. This is a Babylonian term. I actually have a book about the history of that. But anyway, my point is that they were the Greeks became the custodians of that which came before them, and likewise, the Jewish people became the custodian of what was once ours. So many of the things that you see them say and do, not everything, but a lot of what you see them say and do has its roots in our culture. So the Israelites of the 3rd and 4th century BCE, when they were finished with the exile, even in exile, they were like, whatever we're going to do, we're not bowing the knee to no foreign deity. We learned our lesson on that one. And so this is the reason why you don't find idolatry the way that you find pre-exilic. Pre-exilic idolatry is all throughout the Tanakh. It's just all over the place.
Yeah, that's what got us pushed out.
Exactly, but yet you don't see it happening wide scale at all afterwards, at least in that intertestamental period. So I think that these things are important when you're beginning to move forward in the development of the Israelite community. And you mentioned there's a portion that you mentioned about the literature, that the developing of literature. The development of literature was done out of necessity, not because they felt like, hey, let's create books. This was out of necessity. Because by the time of Hellenism, definitely by the time of the Persian culture, Israelite culture was in the process of dying. The culture was dying. The language had been disrupted, even though the language or the writing system that was employed by Ezra was still functional, but there was a cutoff point, because again, not only the writing system changed when they came out of the Babylonian Persian captivity exile, but we spoke about this last week. And that what else changed? The names of our months.
Yeah.
It went from Kodesh HaRishon to Nisan, a deity of Babylon. So this is a very important thing. They bring these names out, and these names that are attached to Babylonian deities. This is when Ezra and all of the individuals that came after him, this is when they were like, no. They started the process of rejecting everything that they learned in Babylon. Anything that was attached to it, they were wiping their hands with it. Like, no, we're not doing that. No, it's back to Abib. It's back to, they were going to go back to the origins, because they saw the connection of these other systems of belief and these other systems of thinking. And it began a slow process of chopping away at Israelite culture. And when you disrupt culture, you disrupt lifestyle. When you disrupt lifestyle, your people as a whole die. Because if there's no culture, if there's no way to manifest that culture, then you're just Hebrew Gentiles now. So the literature served the purpose of what? The literature preserved the culture because they realized that if they were going to be in the diaspora, it was going to be very difficult to live like a Hebrew Israelite of the land. It would be very difficult. How do you, when we always talk about, you got to face the east when we pray. How do you face the east if you're in Susa? If you're in Susa,
for the people that's listening in,
right? So imagine the Israelites are in Susa, which was the capital of Persia at this point, and you're in this captivity. The idea was always that you faced eastward. You faced the rising of the sun. The sun rises in the east. You always face the east. This is where all of these Mesopotamian peoples got the understanding when they pray, you have to face the east. It was the understanding that was the beginning of light. The sun rising. This is where it, this is where it begins. But if you're in Susa and you're facing the east, this is when the Israelite elders were like, well, wait a minute. Were we facing the east because it was about facing the east, or were we facing the east because it was about Jerusalem? And if you're in Susa, Jerusalem is west.
Right.
So now what do? Now you had some of the early rabbinical debates on how do you pray? I mean, if you're in the land of captivity, how do you pray if you're in Rome? You can't face the east. You got to face south. If Jerusalem is south, now you have to face south. So there were these cultural and ethical points that now had to be readdressed, because in the lands that they lived in, some of these concepts were not gelling. Not saying that they couldn't be done, but the people had never been in a situation where they had to rethink basic elements of their culture.
That's why, if you don't mind, that's why I always teach, and I don't know if I saw it say east. I remember when Shlomo did that prayer, if I'm not mistaken, he said if they're in the land far away, me paraphrasing, that if they prayed towards the temple. So that would kind of be the solution to the questions that you was bringing out. Like, okay, if they're in different locations, you just pray towards Jerusalem. Wherever you are, you always, it don't matter if it's east, west, south. So I don't know why they had that issue, that problem, when I don't think Shlomo said east, right? He just said towards the temple, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, towards the temple. But then again, at one point, the temple became the center of all Israelite interactions. But then what happens when the temple doesn't exist anymore?
Okay.
Now, and this is backtracking a little bit, but it's relevant as we move forward. You think about Psalm 137, which from my studies, I'm of the I'll say the educated opinion that Ezekiel wrote Psalm 137.
Okay.
Because we notice that most of Ezekiel's writing, as he's writing, he is by the river Chabar in Babylon.
Well, you want me to pull it up for us at all, or
what? You talking about Psalm 137?
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted me to pull it up or not.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, let's pull it up too. Yeah, but Psalm 137 is a very important psalm. I mean, it's one of the most overlooked. And it's because again, for various reasons, but Psalm 137 might be one of the most important psalms from a historical standpoint, because again, I'm of the thought that Ezekiel wrote Psalm 137, because Psalm 137 clearly occurs in exile.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pull it up, and let's get a little bit of reading if we can.
Okay, what verse do you want me to go to? I'll start from verse 1.
Oh yeah, no, we're gonna definitely start from verse 1.
All right, there we go. All right, Psalm 137 and 1, it says, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down and wept when we remembered Sion or Zion. Upon the willows in the midst of it, we hung our harps. For there our captors demanded us songs, and our tormentors jubilation, saying, sing for us one of the songs of Sion. How can we sing the Supreme King's song in a foreign land?
Mm.
If I forget you, Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its skill. Wow. May my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth if I do not remember you, if I do not exalt Jerusalem above my chief joy. Remember, O Supreme King, against the sons of Adam, the day of Jerusalem, those who said, lay it bare to its foundation. Daughter of Babylon, you devastated one, blessed will be one who repays you with the retribution with which you have repaid us. Blessed will be one who seizes and dashes your children against the rock.
Yeah, you can see the level of desperation in that psalm. It's not exactly a psalm that you're going to hear in church, because the author of Psalm 137, again, who I personally believe is Ezekiel, because obviously, as you see from the very beginning of the psalm, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, there we wept when we remembered Zion. So all this is happening this is being written in the captivity, in the exile of Babylon. And then when you open up the book of Ezekiel, he's writing his writings and receiving his visions by the river Kabar in Babylon, which was one of the major rivers in Babel, in the capital city area. But you look at what the author of Psalm 137 is saying. He's saying a couple things, and one of those, when the captor says, "Sing us one of those songs of Zion," which was clearly a tongue-in-cheek type of disrespect, because they understood that, yeah, you're in captivity. Well, why don't you call out to that great God of yours? Sing one of those songs then. And what did we say? How can we sing Yah's song in a strange land, in a foreign land? How can we do it? Now, of course we can, but they're saying, how can we? That's how downtrodden they had felt. And they said, and they spent the rest of the psalm talking about how they're going to remember Jerusalem. And that if they don't forget, if they forget Jerusalem, let your right hand forget their cunning, like that skill. This is a theme that we see all throughout the rest of the Tanakh that leads up to the time of the Apocrypha. Because what eventually occurs in those later years of the Tanakh, again, like we spoke earlier, was the complete collapse of Israelite culture, of Israelite thought, ethics. We see it pan out in the opening of the book of Maccabees. We see that you have Israelites who, at this point, they're now cutting their hair down to look like that Greco kind of style of hair. They're putting on Greek clothing. They're taking Greek names and replacing their Hebrew names with Greek names. They're going over, right across the street from the temple. They're going into the gymnasiums to exercise naked with the rest, with the Greek boys, doing all manner of insanity, and have completely abandoned everything that which was right and exact in the eyes of the Most High. And we see the desperation of the Maccabees. We see the desperation of all of these Israelite elders leading up to these times because they're trying to stop a tsunami with sandbags.
Mm-hmm.
And they understood that this is one of the reasons why canonization was important, because they knew that the culture was dying. They knew that the influence was dying. The influence of Yah was perishing at this point. The very thing that the Israelites were not doing for centuries after the captivity, we're now seeing that shield, their shield, cracking. And so these scribes decided that it was absolutely necessary to put all of this stuff, all of the culture, all of the ethics, all of the stuff into writing. Because if we continued to operate as an oral history rooted people, it would all die and we would never be able to recover it. Just like Ezra had to fight to recover it, we would not be able to recover it again. So it had to be put into writing.
Do you think that and see, when you say put into writing, are we speaking of the time frame of Alexandria, or are we talking about right now? Because you kind of brought up the Maccabees. Are we talking about that form of literature? And it's a reason I'm asking that question, because if it is the part I just brought out with the literature within the Apocrypha, do you think that, and is the answer yes to that question?
Right. No, these events were already happening prior to the time of Alexander. But during the time of Alexander, this is when it became critical, because again, the Persian exile, that process, it did damage, but Persian culture was still Hebraic,
right?
So there was still some things that were still intact, where it's like, okay, it's not what we would do, but it's not too far. It's just like Israelites dwelling in Arabia. Culture is almost identical, but there's some things that you got to kind of tweak. But generally, you would feel comfortable. That's why it wasn't that big of a deal during the Persian captivity, during the Persian exile, because it was like, okay, there's some things that's not right and exact, but it's still a Hebraic element to it. But they still understood the necessity of now putting things in writing, because again, these elders at this point, they learned from the lesson of Ezra. And we're thankful that Ezra had capped most of this information, had capped all of this information, and was able to reconstruct our history. So they learned that, and they said, okay, this is the reason why you see the rise of the scribes. Now that the scribes were becoming, a major factor in Israel, because now they are the individuals that they are the custodians of Hebrew culture now, because they have to put it in writing in order to preserve it for all times. So the process of the writing of the Apocrypha began prior to the arrival of Hellenism, but it already saw Hellenism was already in the main world, because remember, Persia was conquered by Alexander. So the Israelites saw it coming. It didn't arrive, because before you can change a society, you first have to defeat the society. They first had to defeat the Persians, and then from there they start. But the Israelites, they saw it coming, and they're like, okay, this is not good. This is not going to be good. Daniel speaks about it himself. It's like this is not going to be good. And as it turned out, it wasn't good.
So that's what goes into my next thought. So in this time that we're in now, we're going to get back to that time, but in this time that we're in now, do you think that it is, well, I know the answer to it, but for the audience to hear, that it's critical for men and women that have some level of, not even some level, a great level of competency when it comes, or when it deals with not just the scripture, that's very important, but how to relay it in a way that it can be utilized in 2026. Like, we have a lot of people that are in camps, that are not in camps, especially not in camps, I'll speak on that, or not in assemblies, that's moving alone, and don't even really understand that we are the mirror image of those Israelites that wanted to stay in Persia, or didn't want to be a part of that 42,000 that went to do the will that was of the Most High, right, after being in captivity.
Absolutely.
So do we think that, or do you think that we need more individuals that have that mindset, the Ezra mindset, the scribes mindset, to put things in writing that can hit as many people as possible to reveal the cultural aspect, the culture, righteous culture, to function in this time now? I do understand that it's not going to be a lot that's going to want to do it, because history repeats itself with us. We are the same people.
Indeed.
But do you think that we should be carrying out what they did as far as literature and authorship or scribes?
There's absolutely no question about it. Because the one thing, and here's the proof of just talking about the time that we live in right now. And before I get to that point, let me backtrack about 2, maybe 300 years ago, when the first Hebrew captives came to the Western world. And we'll just say the colonies for now, because I mean, obviously they were going into other areas as well, but let's just stick with the colonies. When that first wave of captives were brought to the colonies, one of the most difficult elements of chattel slavery at that time was what? The captives were always trying to escape. Always. Like every opportunity, they didn't care. As soon as they saw an opportunity, they were running. They didn't know where they were running to, but they knew they had to get out of there, because by nature, they were like, you can't capture us. We're not captives by nature. But then fast forward, the generation after their next. So you take that first generation, they're always trying to escape. The second generation, they're trying to escape too, but they're also like, okay, well, I mean, if I got to be here, I got to be here, but I'm still going to try to escape. The third generation is like, I mean, I guess it'd be kind of cool to not be on this plantation, but I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, going off the plantation, I mean, we don't really know what's out there. I mean, we could run, but at least here we know what we got. I mean, we know where we're going to get food and whatever like that. By the time you get to the fourth generation, this is the reason why by the time you get to the 1800s, nobody is talking. You don't see how people talking about going, like, escaping and going back across the seas. They're talking about going to Pennsylvania. Let's go to New York. Let's go to Massachusetts. Let's get away from the South. They don't want to leave the land of the captivity. They just want to be in a better version of that captivity. And this is the reason why later on, people like Marcus Garvey was such a problem, because what he was suggesting was so radical to African Americans of that time that even W.E.B. Du Bois wrote a whole segment of one of his books about Marcus Garvey, calling him fat and ugly, but with intelligent eyes. Like, why would you say that? Because again, in W.E.B. Du Bois' mind, in his mind at that time, because he had the same mentality of Frederick Douglass, and that is, America is our home. We were born here, so this is our land, and we'll work with the Europe, we'll work with the white man, and but we got to dwell together because this country was built with us together. So, like, this is an actual doctrine that Frederick Douglass taught, that no, leaving this country for what? This is great. Look at all of it. We're able to go to college, we're able to go to church, and we're able to do all of these beautiful things. So you see, after a certain amount of generations, the fight to liberate dies. what we see in the book of Haggai, therefore, shouldn't surprise us. Because 70 years, remember, there were young people who went into that captivity in 586 BCE. Young people. And when that captivity was over, those young people were grandparents.
Yeah.
Possibly great grandparents. So imagine that first generation who went in, those are the ones who are being spoken of in Psalm 137.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who remembers Jerusalem. Because they were there. They were like, no, I remember when the temple was there. I remember, and we remember when Esau was like, yeah, tear it, raise it, burn it to the ground. They remember. But what about the grandchildren? They don't remember.
Yeah, they don't got no
Jerusalem.
knowledge of it at all.
Right. They never saw Jerusalem burning. They never saw everything that they once thought was the world just perishing before them. They have no recollection of that. What they have a recollection of is the beauty of the city of Babel
Mm-hmm.
and the magnificence of Susa and Persia. They have memories of that. Moshe is a memory now.
Yeah.
Mordecai and Esther, they are the yeah, man, like we talk about in America about, yeah, Barack Obama, the first black president. Yeah. This is how they were probably viewing Esther.
Yeah.
Yo, we got an Israelite, so the Israelite this is the way that they're looking at. They cannot consider anything prior to that existence because they've never been to that land. They've never been to Jerusalem. They've never seen it. They've never experienced it. They don't know what it is to keep Sukkot. They don't know what it is to be in the presence of Shlomo's temple. They don't know none of this stuff. These things are just stories now, folk tales to them. And then you can imagine the great grandchildren, the ones who are going to be part of that wave of Israelites to leave exile. They're probably thinking, we're going to Jerusalem for what? To them, Jerusalem is a strange land.
Mm-hmm.
Persia is home. Persia is home. Babylon is home.
Saying, and that's why, forgive me. That's why I'm saying too. Like I wanna make something real clear to the listeners, that's listening back or listening right now. This description that Chief Prince is bringing out, which is really in our literature, like we read it like a fairy tale. We're not really in it. We're not really dissecting it from the lens that was us. But just hearing how you're describing this is us today. Like we in this truth, and those that's not in the truth that may be listening, those as Christians or whoever it may be, you still us at the same time, because even us in this walk are still not all the way in. And I say that respectfully. And so we're them. And as we put out the numbers, somewhere between, I say 43, some of the scholars say maybe even 15, 20, that's cool, but that's still an extremely small number compared to 500,000 people. Didn't want to go to Jerusalem, didn't want to go serve and worship the Most High, didn't want to do the work behind that, didn't want to do the work. That's us today.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And this is where, again, the danger that Israelites were facing in the years to come. One of the and before I get off the subject of Persia and kind of start steering more towards Greek, the Greek Empire, one of the most dangerous elements of Persian philosophical and theological thought.
Your
And
there you go. Can you say the first part? You just whatever you just said
familiar with
beforehand.
the one of the most devastating elements of Persian history, of Persian culture and theological musings that affected Israel was Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism was the state religion of Persia. On the surface, not a bad theology per se, because it's still rooted in certain Shemitic or certain Hebraic elements, but there is a very important statement that's made in Zoroastrianism that the Israelites had to contend with, and this is even before the Persian captivity. Zoroastrianism was already on the rise, even in the 600 BC period. So even before the captivity, Zoroastrianism was on the map, and that belief was that God, and I'll use the term God for this purpose, that God is not one God. God is two. There's two gods. There is the righteous God, Ahura Mazda, and then there's an evil deity. I can't recall the name of the evil deity, but it'll come back to me. But and in their teaching, there is an eternal battle in heaven between Ahura Mazda and his angels, and the evil deity and his angels. But the battle and who's going to win in that regard has everything to do with what man does on earth. So if people are living righteously, they are helping their righteous God win the battle against the evil God. But if you go evil, then you're helping the evil God against the. So this is how Zoroastrian belief was structured.
Mm-hmm.
And the belief was so prevalent in those final days of Yehuda that we see that Yeshayahu, in the book Yeshayahu, addresses it kind of directly, doesn't mention it by name, but I mean, there's a reason why Yeshayahu continues to reiterate that Yah is our power, and beside him there is no other deity.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really see that type of narrative in those earlier books.
Mm-hmm.
It was always the Most High was this, and that all other deities were just they're just nothing. They're just idols. This is the first time that you actually see that there is a polemic attack on the idea that God has a partner, that there's another God, whether it's a partner or whether, but there's this battle here.
Mm-hmm.
And the prophets saw this coming. They saw it. It was on the horizon. It was in the culture at this point. You start hearing the whispers, the cultural whispers, like, yo, sort of like music, if you're down south, yo, I heard that they got this album, by Rakim, man. And you see them saying, like, they hear rumors of it. They may not heard it, but they hear people talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how in those final days of the kingdom of Yehuda, these were the things that they had to deal with. They had to deal with how do we counteract the effect of these other belief systems? See, they didn't have to do anything against Babylonian deities per se, because those were just idols. Like, these are statues. But in Zoroastrianism, these were no longer idols. These were actual omnipotent beings. These beings were outside of human interaction. So it's not like, oh, this is just an idol. No, this is now a theological construct, which is way more difficult to wrestle with than, let's say, Baal. Baal is just, okay, this is just a damn statue. Whatever, it's nothing. And this is what the Israelites were wrestling with during the Persian period, and it got even worse by the time the Greeks came along. So in between the time of the Persians and the Greeks, you start seeing these other writings, these other Israelite writings begin to pop up
Mm-hmm.
because they had to address the things that were going on, the shift in power. So when you see Ben Sirach, which was written way before the version that we have today. Remember, the version that we have today was redacted by, the grandson
Yeah.
during the time of the Greeks. This material he had already written, almost maybe 70, 80 years prior to that, because his grandfather wrote this material, and he just simply took it, put it into Greek, and he just said, "Hey, listen, forgive us because Greek is the devil, but we're trying to do our best to present it in a way where it doesn't lose its force. It's going to lose some force, but we're going to do our best to present it in the best possible way." Mm-hmm. This is when you begin to see the rise of the book of Ben Sirach. You begin to see the rise of the quote unquote, well, I'm not going to say the Wisdom of Solomon, but the book of wisdom. When you start seeing Baruch and all of these other books that start popping up, because these books are doing what? They're trying to keep Israel grounded in a time where the ground is shifting on them. Mm-hmm. The cultural groundwork that they've operated in is now quicksand.
That culture, and it's quicksand today too, by the way.
Oh yeah, it's probably,
I know
probably beyond it.
It is quicksand for us, like when you're watching all of these things play out on social media, probably in our day-to-day lives as well, and especially those that's active in the culture, right? The walk as Bnei Israel, and you can see it from the viewpoint that we're speaking on. It's like, man, it's rapid quicksand today, man. Some would disagree with me on that statement too, but it's bad.
Well, yeah, and again, it's even if we narrow the playing field down to just the modern Hebrew Israelite thought. Mm-hmm. And when I say modern, I'm going to say very modern, meaning let's just say within the last 40 years. Mm-hmm. Those of us who were around during the what's often referred to as the golden age of Hebrew Israelite thought, which is normally considered to be the 80s and the 90s. Mm-hmm. That's considered the golden age, when Israel was at its height as far as influence and like I said, I came into this walk at a time when if people knew that you were a Christian, they ridiculed you. Christian, you don't know nothing. If you were a Muslim, you dudes just bump your head on the ground all day. You know what I'm saying, and whatever like that. It was like clowning them. But if people, when they found out that you're an Israelite, they were like, oh, you an Israelite? Oh, yeah. I respect you, brothers, man. I don't always believe everything you said, but I respect you. Bro. Like there was this air of when Israelites came into a space, the people had to kind of bow to it, even if they did not agree. But the amount of respect that Israelites had in those days was phenomenal. People saw you, they knew. They like, listen, I don't know what y'all believe, but it got to be something powerful. Like these are things that we heard back then. Mm-hmm. We don't know what you believe, but it's got to be powerful. They saw it. They saw the unity. They saw that we could not be shaken. And even when we had disagreements, we had the disagreements, right? Not the world. The world knew nothing about the things that was going on in house,
right? Because
it's none of their business. Mm-hmm. So we remember those days, like the days of Jerusalem. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We remember those days, but now we're talking about a generation that are now online, who's never been in camps, who's never had the discipline that comes with being in a congregation, a camp, or whatever. They've never witnessed this. They've never have partaken in that. So now, as far as they're concerned, they don't believe that they are living in a cesspool version of what was once Israelite thought, what was once 30, 40 years ago, which used to be this magnanimous, magnificent culture that was being expressed regularly. Now it has been reduced to what? Facebook posts.
Mm-hmm.
The Israelite movement is Facebook posts now. So when so again, there's, like you said, there's going to be Israelites who are not going to necessarily agree with that because they're of this generation. So naturally, they're going to defend their generation. Just like the generation that was spoken of in the book of Haggai. They're going to defend their position. They have to defend it because otherwise, why are you staying in the same stagnant situation that you're in when you were told to go do something different? So this is why, again, the writings became so important because the culture was shifting rapidly from Persian culture to Greek culture. And Greek culture was so powerful because it was never forced on it. Greek culture is one of the only cultures in ancient time that was not offered to people by virtue of war. The Greeks fought, like they fought for land, but they believed that Greek philosophy would connect people, would bring people together in a way that war couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And they were correct. Because Greek philosophy is one of those things. Greek philosophy, I compare Greek philosophy to tofu. Because what is listen, tofu is what it is. But what does tofu? Tofu takes on the flavor that you give it.
That's right. Yeah.
So if you've got chicken, tofu, but it tastes like chicken, it's not chicken, but it's structured to take on. This is the reason why Greek philosophy was able to move so swiftly through the known world, because it was not a doctrine that you had to either accept them and get rid of everything else. It was like, no, you don't have to give up anything. Your God is equal to Zeus. It's all God. It's okay. You call him Zeus, I call him this, you call him that. It's okay because it's all the same God.
People saying that today, by the way.
Of course
Christians
they are.
saying that today. So-called black people, I heard so-called white people say that exact verbiage that you just used.
I've heard Israelites say it. So
Israelites too, yes.
But because it's and we're not saying it, to be disrespectful to anybody, but just saying that's how powerful Hellenism was. Hellenism was a culture and a theology that did not require you to give up what you already believe.
Mm-hmm.
See, when the Assyrians came against the Mesopotamian peoples, the rest of the Mesopotamian peoples, their attitude wasn't, hey, let's share ideas. No, whatever the hell you believe in, that's over. You're gonna bow down to Ashur, and you're gonna freaking pay us money. If not, we'll kill you. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. So you had to convert. You had to say, okay, I can't worship my God anymore. I have to worship this. But this is the reason why there was always resistance. This is the reason why people resisted the Assyrians.
Mm-hmm.
This is the reason why they resisted the Babylonians. That's why they resisted the Egyptians, because they're like, no, we're not giving up nothing. Because again, listen, you got swords, we got swords too. Let's get busy. But the Greeks, once they conquered the lands, they didn't continue to kill. They came amongst the people and said, listen, let's make a covenant. Let's make a covenant.
You like covenants, don't you?
Right. Are you not a covenant people?
Right.
And we're like, well, yeah, I guess we are. But that's how Greek philosophy, so-called Greek philosophy, why it was so successful in the known world at that time, because it was the only culture that did not require you to relinquish your belief. It was a syncretism. It's a
Yeah.
belief system that can merge, again, tofu. It's tofu. You know what I'm saying? It can merge with any other flavor and can still operate. If you don't believe me, anyone who's listening and watching, go pick up the writings of Philo. I was going to say something else, but
And you know what's
um,
interesting is America started off like, I'm saying, Egyptians, Assyrians,
mhm.
when it came to how they operated, but then all of a sudden a shift happened. And now they're operating like the Greeks.
Right. And again,
And we falling for it today.
because everyone realizes, or should realize, that cultural imperialism is at its best when you don't see it coming. You can't defend against something that you don't see coming.
Mhm.
We saw the Assyrians coming. The prophets even said, "Yeah, the Assyrians are coming. They're going to be swift, and they're describing them. We know the Assyrians are coming. We know how to get down. They were bloodthirsty. They were probably the most bloodthirsty Shemites you'll ever want to meet. You know what I'm saying? They love war. Um, the Babylonians were the same way. They weren't as brutal as the Assyrians, but they got busy too. They love to go to war. The Greeks only went to war against individuals that wanted to go to war. You see what happened when they came to, in the book of Maccabees. You saw what happened when these Greek forces came into the land. They didn't come like full blast on some war stuff. They were like, "Hey, listen, why don't you be the first to come forth and just bow, you know what I'm saying? Bow the knee and sacrifice a little swine and be friends with the emperor, be friends with the king. What's wrong with that?" Like, they were reasoning with them.
Right.
Little, little,
Reason
little, little,
first.
right, a little swine on the altar. Come on, a little swine ain't gonna hurt you. Little swine, not a big deal. You know what I'm saying?
And
And
let's take a pause on that. It's because there's two things I want to speak on that part, because again, we might have those that may not be B'nai Israel consciously, right, or culturally speaking, they might be Christians. So it's very interesting that now the Apocrypha or any of the Maccabees is not within
mhm,
the canon.
right,
But that point right there, with the swine, with the circumcision
mhm,
portion that's spoken about, and how we fought or we died for that, maintaining what was given to us as far as the law. So if you're listening and you're someone that's not familiar with it, take a read in First Maccabees, read Maccabees and see, and then ask yourself, why is that no longer in the canon that people have for their Bibles, and also think on, if that was in there, how would that shift the current doctrine of pork, the
mhm.
current doctrine of just able to do and be a part of any customs that's outside of Scripture. So it's just a thing, just think on that. Just think on that.
Absolutely.
I was listening.
Now, I want to shift gears slightly, because everything that we've been talking about in the past 15, 20 minutes, there it kind of reaches a zenith with a particular intertestamental book that many Israelites, because I've seen it, because, well, I've seen it online. Many Israelites are not even aware of the existence of this book, and it's unfortunate. Um, but it's a book called The Letter of Aristias,
Mm-hmm.
and well, I wouldn't say an early Hebrew or Israelite writing, it's not it's not late or early. It's like midway, the 200s BCE period. But the letter of Aristias is a treatise that records the history that led up, the history and the conditions and the circumstances that led up to the Septuagint.
Mm.
The letter of Aristias says that there was a local I think it was from the Seleucid family, the family of the Seleucids, one of the generals of Alexander. But it was a local emperor king named Philadelphus, and this particular king, he was a peculiar king because he was a bibliophile. He loved books. Nothing made him happier than to get his hands on a book or a copy of that book, and he would travel around to all of the known religious centers, cultural centers of the known world at that time, and would, reason with the people, saying, to try to get a copy of whatever their religious book was, or their historical book. So he had copies of the Iliad, the Odyssey. He had copies of the Emerald Tablet, what we now know as the Emerald Tablets, and the Epic of Gilgamesh, all of the known, the Book of Akhiqar, all of these ancient writings he had access to. He had, it says, and I think in Aristias, that he had upward of 200,000 books. Now, with that said, let's remember at the time, these were not actual books. These were just simply scrolls. So we're not talking about 500-page books. No, these are just scrolls, whatever that text was. But he says, but the testimony in that book says that he had over 200,000 of these books or scrolls. So he was a bibliophile. And so, just like we see in Maccabees, it came a time when they were like, well, what about these Yehudim? What about these Judites? They got a book of law. And Philadelphia's like, what? His antennas went shot straight up. They got a book of the laws of Moses and all these ethical and blah blah blah. So of course you don't got to say that twice to Philadelphia. He's like, oh yeah, we're gonna get that. And so in the book, it talks about how he sent his men out to gather the wisest of these Israelites, and being that it was the 240 BCE period, these men, these scholars that they got were almost certainly of a Pharisaic stock, because during that time period they were the only scholars of that time period in Israel that actually knew the law and could expound on the law. So he gathers these individuals and says, hey, I'd like to get a copy of your law, your whole law, the whole book. And these elders are like, no, we're not. This is the law of the Most High. We're not giving you a copy of nothing. And he pleaded with them, listen, listen, this would be really good for the king. King would love this, and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, and their attitude was, we don't particularly care. So that we don't care what the king has to say about it. We're not making any copy of this law into Greek. And the king heard those words, and then he sent word back saying, well, I tell you what, we happen to have 20,000 of your Israelite brethren captured. I say, if you write me a book of the law, I would feel like letting your people go. 20,000 is not a bad price for just for a copy of your book. And these Israelite scholars, they grudgingly agreed. And so the letter of Aristeas goes and it shows the process in which King Philadelphus were testing these men, because he first wanted to see, okay, like, all right, everyone says that y'all are scholars, but let me pose some difficult questions to you, because he wanted to see if they were in fact wise men. And so the rest of the book of Aristeas, the letter of Aristeas, is King Philadelphus posing these difficult questions at each elder, and each elder stands up, breaks down everything down. But at the end of all of their responses, it's always, but we give the Most High the glory.
Mm-hmm.
All things are through the Most High. The Most High allows all of this, even when it was like something negative, about their condition. And we give praise to the Most High because He is a righteous God, and so on and so forth. So there was always giving that respect to the Most High. And that king said, wow, these guys are the truth. And he commissioned them to write the law in Greek. And these elders, they wrote the law on the Torah in Greek, but everywhere that the Most High's name appears, they would not translate it into Kyrios or Theos in Greek. They would translate it. They would put the Paleo script of the Tetragrammaton and Paleo script. They would put that, and then they would continue with the Greek.
Mm-hmm.
And then every time the Most High's reference would pop up, it was right back to the Paleo, and then to continue in the Greek. Now this is important. This is the Septuagint in itself is important, but this is important because what we're seeing at this point is our Israelites understanding that you can't stop the tsunami. Hellenism wasn't going anywhere. Like AI, it's not going anywhere. It's here. Mm-hmm. Now, either you're going to have to learn how to navigate it, or you're going to be left in the dust. And so these Israelite elders who are now writing all of these intertestamental books, they realize that we have to not only continue to write books, but we also now have to write literature to counteract Hellenism, because we can't kill Hellenism, but we can write things to dissuade our people from falling into Hellenism. This is why the Apocrypha started to come about. This is why Ben Sirach was so important, why it was necessary to put Ben Sirach in Greek, to help the people of that time to steer clear of Hellenism, to steer clear and to keep faith in the Most High Yah, not to bow the knee to these foreign concepts or whatever, because again, they knew that Hellenism wasn't going anywhere, so they can't fight against Hellenism. They just have to get the people and just try to steer them in a different direction.
Okay. And I think also that's, speaking on ethics, decorum, all these different things was brought out with the literature of that time, the Greek literature, dealing with like Sirach and all that other stuff like that. We need that today, and I think that that's the biggest part. Like the reason we I'm harping on these type of things that you bring out is because I see the correlation. Mm-hmm. Extremely. I see the correlation, and even within those of us that are on this path, I see how it's still we're deteriorating when it comes to our culture understanding. We are even still mixing our understanding with Christianity.
Indeed.
And, I don't believe it's helping us like we may believe. And I think that, I know it's not, but I think we may believe it because of maybe certain successes that may be happening, within our lives, but we are kind of assimilating ourselves to the culture that we've been given. And the culture that we have been given is really no accountability, no repercussions. So since we don't have to partake in that part, but we could partake in this part. And not saying that part needs to be there, but I think that all these parts need to be put in place to be a complete righteous culture. So, and I think that's what people like Ben Sirach, of course, Ezra, Nehemiah, they understood. So,
Yeah, and that's absolutely the case, and this is where we find ourselves in today. We find it. I mean, we can draw so many different parallels. I mean, everything from W.E.B. Du Bois to tofu. We're just drawing these parallels, and because we see that as a people, even when we have knowledge, we still tend to repeat the very same madness of the previous generations. There's an old I don't want to say an old camp teaching because I hate that term, camp teaching. But there was an old understanding, and I think it's still relevant today. But there was a comparison between two texts. You had the text in the book of Daniel. What is that? Chapter 12, where it talks about that you know that the time is going to come when people are going to run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. And so the understanding was that, yeah, see, in the last days, there's going to be plenty of knowledge, so on and so forth. But then you also compare another text, and I believe it's the book of Amos, chapter 8. I believe it's chapter 8, where it says that behold, the days come that there's going to be a famine in the land, not a famine of bread or a thirst of water, but of hearing the words of Yah. For many shall go run to and fro, and shall seek the word of Yah, and shall not find it. And so the elders back in the days, they took those two verses and they said, this is going to be the conditions in which we are in today, where you're going to find knowledge is going to be everywhere. Knowledge will be so easy to obtain. Everybody could be a scholar.
yeah.
Everybody. Yep. But there will be a famine of the words of Yah. So knowledge will increase, but the words of Yah, not so much. It's going to be a famine. That a time is going to come. And again, I'm not saying that it's exactly what we're talking about this exact time. But what I'm saying is that the conditions are absolutely the same because we continue to repeat the same things over and over. Nothing is new under the sun, and we've proven it. So when we look at the again, the not just the writings of the Apocrypha, but even in the writings of the pseudepigrapha, and I'm sure that there's many Israelites who have tapped into the so-called Old Testament pseudepigrapha, but all of these books that are in there, whether you consider them to be scripture, whether you consider them to be folk tale, or however you determine it, or how you want to describe it, these are the writings of our people during this intertestamental period, during that period of time between the so-called Old and New Testament, that helps give us context behind what's going on after the fact. What was happening in the 3rd century BCE? This is one of the problems with Israelite teachings at times, is that we tend to create these timestamps in our history, where you have Tanakh-based Israelites who will basically say anything after the Babylonian captivity, we don't consider that. Okay. Anything after the Babylonian captivity, so from the Babylonian captivity on, you don't acknowledge it. Okay, that's fair. Well, then you have to throw Ezra out.
Uh-oh.
You got to throw Nehemiah out. You got to throw Esther out. You got to throw Chronicles out. You have to throw some of the Proverbs and some of the Psalms out. You have to throw out some of the prophets. You definitely got to throw out Malachi or Malachi. Got to throw Malachi out. You got to throw Zechariah out. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's in the Tanakh that has to get thrown out because all of these writings and individuals were post-exilic.
Yep.
And so we realize how ridiculous that is. But that's one example of time stamping history. The other major time stamp in our history is what? 70 AD. We assume that 70 AD happens, all Israelites went into captivity, and then next thing you know, they pop up on the shores of America. Like, there's a lot of history in between these periods. Between the 400 plus years in between the closing of the Ezra era and the opening of the Christian Greek scriptures, which is commonly called the New Testament. There's 400 years of 400 years of history there. Israelites were still living their lives. Things were still happening in real time. It's not like Malachi comes to a close and all of a sudden everybody kind of goes into this suspended animation. No one's doing anything and no one's moving until the arrival of a particular person, whatever, later on down the line. And it's the same thing with 70 AD. It's like, these are just timestamps, but what about the history in between? So they make it seem like 70 AD happens, we go into captivity, and then you blink your eye, and we wake up in the Carolinas and in New York on ships. This is one of the reasons why, not to make a shameless plug, but this is one of the reasons why the authoritative chronology of Hebrew Israelite history was put together, because it was those periods of time that Israelites don't talk about. And that's mainly because they don't know. And that's not a disrespect. It's just saying that this is unfortunately how many of us were taught. We were taught, with these little timestamp, little scripture here, little, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, whatever the case may be. This is how many of us were taught, and we can't think outside of that paradigm. I'll say it that way. Outside of that paradigm. But this is why the Apocrypha, the books of the Apocrypha and the Pseudepigrapha are so important, because it fills in that entire period of time. So that's why when someone goes into the so-called New Testament, they go to the book of Jude, and they're not confused. They see a portion in Jude where it says, where it talks about the angel Michael and Satan arguing about the burial place of Moshe. Now, if you've never read anything outside of the New Testament, you would be reading that little portion of Jude, and you're like, what is he talking about? When did Michael and the adversary argue about the burial place of Moshe? When did all of this stuff happen? But the letter of Jude assumes that you were reading the Pseudepigrapha. So we understand that when you fill in all of these blanks in those 400 plus years, everything else after it now makes sense. You begin to understand why, when the book of Matthew opens up, why certain things are being done, why certain conditions of the Israelites are the way they are. They didn't just happen this way overnight. It happened through a gradual progression of Hellenism. Real quick, let's pull up the being that we were talking about the book of Zechariah, we should actually remove it from the canon, being that it was post-exilic. But let's pull up Zechariah. I just want to show you something real quick.
What chapter?
Chapter 9, one of my all-time favorites. And we could read the verses before it, but it's but specifically verse 13. Maybe we could start like a few verses before 13. I don't like just starting off with one verse.
I'll start at chapter 11. Verse 11.
Okay.
As for you also, because of the blood of my covenant with you, I have set your prisoners free from the waterless pit. Return to the stronghold, your prisoners who have the hope. This very day I am declaring that I will restore double to you. For I will bend Yehuda as my bow. I will fill the bow with Ephraim. I will stir up your sons, Theon, against your sons, Greece, and I will make you like a warrior sword.
So even in Zechariah, again, this is post-exilic, but Zechariah, as well as we see it throughout Daniel, the book of Daniel, where he is clearly seeing the arrival of the Greeks. He's foretelling it. Zechariah is seeing it, and what we find in in these examples is that if we just pay attention, if we pay attention to our circumstances, you'll see that nothing has actually changed. It's the same exact go around. Whether you say Greece, Yawan, or whether you want to say America, whether you want to say, it doesn't matter. It's the same cultural imperialism. And these writings that our ancestors left on record for us were meant to warn us of what would happen if we were to dilute Torah, if we were to dilute our history and our culture and our literature with foreign ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, and Adoni, we've had this conversation many a times. But when we were talking about the new moon and different concepts, that there is no point in time prior to the arrival of the Greeks where you can show one doctrinal discrepancy amongst Israel.
Yeah.
Not one.
Mm-hmm.
No discrepancy in the pronunciation of the name. Mm-hmm. No discrepancy with the calendar. No discrepancy with the Shabbat. Like nothing. You can't. It was either you served Yah or you served the damn demons. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only when you get to the time of the Greeks where the name of the Most High is now debated. Should we keep the Shabbat or not? Is now debated. Everything becomes debated. The language, debate, everything. This is not something that just happened in Israelite camps during the 90s and the 2000s. This has been happening since the arrival of the Greeks. It didn't even happen during the time of the Persians. Israel still operated as Israel. They still had their struggles, but you never see Ezra saying, yeah, in those days I saw Israelites calling on a different name than Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. You don't even see it. You see the individuals might be breaking law, but you've never seen them debating it. You've never seen them questioning it. It was always, you either kept it or you didn't. You either kept the Shabbat or you didn't keep it.
That's it.
Either you married Israelite women or you married some other women, whatever like that. It wasn't like, well, let's define what Israelite woman is, or, well, what is really the Shabbat? You didn't see this type of activity until the time of Hellenism. Hellenism created an atmosphere in which everything can be questioned.
And we got that going tonight. We got that going right now. Even the calendar,
Everything.
what's the name of the calendar? Greco-Roman calendar. I mean, it's still present today. And we need to see these things in order to shift these things. And only those that are going to have a true desire will shift it. Like a real desire to shift it. Like not wanting to operate as much as possible, not wanting to operate within the culture that we're assimilated to now.
Absolutely. And
those of you that's tuning in right now, I know I haven't asked it. I normally do, like every 20, 30 minutes, but I haven't today because I've been listening. I've been invested in just this information that has been brought out today. I hope that this information has been good for you. Those that's been listening in live and those that's listening back. Please, if you haven't done so, make sure that you like, Make sure that you share it. Once it's over, make sure that you subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel on YouTube. And if you're on Facebook right now, make sure you come over to YouTube, House of Balance Network, and subscribe if you have not done so. All right. Like it and share it. All right. All right. Chief Press, what do you think we're at now?
Oh no, I thought you were gonna I don't know. I can't really see anything from my end, but I thought you were gonna. I don't know if any comments or anything that whatever.
No comments today. People kind of silent today. We have we had Gabari Hoshba a while back. I put out, we have forgotten how to be free. We have no idea what freedom is. Before this walk, I didn't understand the freedom of the Shabbat. I thought worshiping on the Shabbat was oppressing. Those are
yeah, and even to that statement itself, and I think many Israelites, I'm not gonna say all because I don't know all Israelites' experience, but I think generally many of us when we came into not the walk, but when we came into the knowledge of being Israel, the Shabbat was oppressing. It's an oppressive institution. You're going to stop me from partying. I'm trying to, we're trying to get our party on Friday nights and, do all types of madness. And then now we're being told, oh, no, you can't do that. And you can't even do it Saturday morning because guess what? Then you'd be unclean. But, oh, wait a minute, unclean. I mean, I already took a shower. Why am I? And so it just seemed just oppressive because we didn't understand the whole purpose of it in the beginning. So I understand what the sister Yehoshua is saying, because like I said, I remember. I clearly remember that was the Shabbat was like the bane of my existence at one point. Being able to conform to the Shabbat and giving up shrimp fried rice. Yeah. Like that was oh man. So I understand that feeling or whatever like that. But once you've increased in learning, increased in understanding, and of course praying that Yah allows you to take a peek into the tent of wisdom at times, you begin to see that these things are not oppressive, but they are in fact liberating.
And once you begin to get that true personal relationship, people say I got a personal relationship. And then when you challenge that statement, think about it. Relationships, there are requirements in relationships. I want you to treat me this way. You don't treat me this way, I don't feel like you love me or you're disrespecting me. Like it's things in place in personal relationships, right? But we don't dive into that portion. What it is, it's a one-sided relationship. It's only what you want out of it or what you see it should be, but you're not looking at the other side. And the other side was given to us. And that thing or those things that was given to us was structure.
Right.
So, yeah. All right, you all. If you have enjoyed this portion, this part 2, we went through a lot in part 1, so that's why part 1 was a little bit longer. I'm gonna let Chief Press, if you have anything else that you wanted to bring out, or if you think it's a good closing segment for this portion, let me know that as well. If anyone is listening in and you have any comments, any questions, this is the time. If you have any comments or questions, and I'll pull it up on the screen. And if we can answer it, we'll answer it. If we can't, then we'll make sure we get the answer for you soon. But knowing Chief Prince Bullion, he definitely want to have an answer for you.
Maybe not. Maybe not. But
yeah, please, you all. If you have any questions, let us know. This is a time. You have something?
No, just to kind of again, just to wrap up, because a lot of this is rabbit hole type of stuff. Like, I mean, there's so many directions that these type of talks can go in. But I think maybe in a sage talk moving forward, we can actually go to the next stage of this discussion, and that is the canon.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Why do we have it? And did we institute it? And what are the ramifications that come with whatever the answer to that question is?
Right.
But I say to close up that point, and just to kind of put a pin in that one, is that as Israel, we have to, and I cannot stress this. I can never stress this too much, and that is, we have to stop being Christian Israelites. And by Christian Israelites, I'm not. This is not meaning individuals who view Yehoshua, you know what I'm saying, or Yeshua, or whatever, as Messiah. This is not that kind of conversation. What I'm saying by Christian, meaning that the church fathers, the Christian, the Christian denominations that have given us what we have as far as a canon, we have to stop thinking within the confines of the Christian church. We also have to stop thinking within the confines of the Jewish synagogue of modern day. If we are truly the children of Israel, if we are truly the beginning and end of what it means to be a covenant people, then, like we've said it previously, we not just have, but we possess the power to define and redefine.
Yes.
No matter what it is. I don't care what Google says.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what AI or ChatGPT or Gronk or any. I don't. We should not care. Yes, they are tools. They can be useful, whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, we are the sole controllers of our culture. We are the sole controllers of our scripture. We are the sole controllers of everything that Yah has given us. We are not supposed to be the custodians of it. We are the owners of it. We who come through the blood of the covenant that Abraham established, that he passed to Yitzchak, that he passed to Yaakov, who passed to his sons, and eventually to Moshe. What is the well, that's another story. But the opening words of Pirkei Avot. But you know what I'm saying. But it is the passing down of that power.
Mm-hmm.
This is a power that was given to us by the Most High. If we're going to say that we are the children of Israel, then we have to stop being afraid to question our masters.
That's right.
So when we have this conversation, when this conversation goes further down the rabbit hole, and we start talking about the canon that the Christian churches gave us, we're going to have to, like the Tyler Perry movie says, we're going to have to make some hard decisions. But these things are necessary if we are who we say we are. And on that note, shalom, shalom.
Hallelujah. And I want to add to that. I'm sure I'm going to be saying this often as we go into that topic, because again, I told you, well, you already know, I'm working on a book dealing with canonization. And once we, men and women alike, and I'm really specifically speaking to the men when I say this portion, but again, men and women alike, get to a certain level of understanding, and what Chief Prince likes to say often, competency. And that's a different level. Competency when it comes to the scripture, culture, history, This isn't saying you have to be, a genius in all these different topics. It's to say competency, have a level of understanding when it comes to how to navigate, who to go to, what to go to bring forth certain ideas within the subjects that you're dealing with. Once we get to that certain level, then it's going to come to this part I'm going to say right now. You are the authority.
Mm-hmm.
We are the authority under the Most High, under the Supreme King. Because the Supreme King, Yah, gave it to us to not only train and teach our people. Notice I said train. Not just teach, but to train, to guide, right? To be we are the authority. And I'm going to continue to say that going forward. This is called Sage Talk for a reason. We are that. Not from an arrogant standpoint, from an understanding that this is his people, this is your people, right? Our people, our literature, our history. Once you get, and I'm going to say this one last time and I'm done. Once we get to a certain level of competency, that's when we can truly take hold of that title or that position.
Mm-hmm.
Because just because we find out who we are, it doesn't automatically put us at that position. We have to train. We have to get understanding. Just like everything else in life. Any of you all that have a degree or anything like that, you didn't just get the degree. If there's any doctors out there that's watching this, it's certain things that some of us know, but we have not did surgery. We're not qualified for it, and I say that respectfully. We have to have a desire and a want. Same thing, but desire to me is a little more passionate into getting and obtaining the knowledge needed to now be that authority. And then when you are that authority, it's a time mostly to be humble. Mostly to be humble, but to know when that authority needs to be executed. And right now, what we're talking about is that time of execution. Once we get into the canonization, so we're going into that direction next week, is what you're saying, right?
It could be next week. It could be the week after, whatever the case may be. But it's inevitable.
All praise to the Most High. Toda Rabah, Gabriel Hoshaba. Those that's tuning in, we see people coming in, coming out. If you just came in now, make sure you watch part one, before you watch this one, and go back and watch this one as well. This is Sage Talk, the dawn of Hellenism. We started off with the time of Esther, coming into the dawn of Hellenism. That was part one. This is part two. We look forward to you all coming in next week. Yom Baby E, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please share it. Let people know about it. Like, share, and subscribe. And without further ado, until next time, may the Most High bless and guard each and every one of you. Shalom, shalom.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. I see a dream, that dream is green, and I don't mean material things. Freedom to the land, child, woman, and man, as we take up for what we stand. Better days and better nights, as we stand and unite. We're one and the same. Why is it so hard not to point and to blame? Better sheet, get our houses in order and we'll see the peace. There are steps that we must take if we want to see.
I see my people rising. no more stopping us. A couple billion acres across America, us. The peace rose for the sake of us.
The sake of us, the
I
sake
see
of
my
us.
people rising, no more stopping us. A couple billion acres across America, us. The peace rose for the sake of us. No more failing, telling me and beneath. What a beautiful moment, and a sight I can't wait to see. Even if I miss it, at least I wasn't part of the mission. Changing lives of men, women, and children. All glory goes to He that causes us all to be. And if they're thinking we can, we show them that just as long as we stand. A monument, we the people can't be broken as long as we stay focused. I see my people rising, no more stopping us. A couple billion acres across America, us. The peace rose for the sake of us. For the sake of us. I see my people rising, no more stopping us. A couple billion acres across America, us. The peace rose for the sake of us. I see my